Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Strife's Sanctum podcast. My name is Citizen Strife, and it's a new anime season, so it's going to be a bit of a different episode here and there, because not every show that I wanted to see has either debuted a dub version or debuted outright. Specifically, Apothecary Diaries and Happy Married Season 2, my friend and I are going to watch the episodes hopefully today or tomorrow, so I'll have updates on that for the next review. So I'll fill time a little later with other shows that I've decided to binge watch as opposed to anything that debuted. But there are still a few things that did debut this week that I was able to catch. Rules, as usual, is spoiler review as best as possible. I'll try to keep it as best as I can. But if you haven't seen it, then be warned, there are spoilers. Try to only do things that have dubs so far, which is why anything that hasn't yet, I'm not going to get to, but, Crunchyroll and Netflix will get to those as best as possible. I do have access to both platforms, so I do have access to a lot of stuff, and I should be able to get updates as well as I can. And yeah, we'll just get started with that, because really, with me waiting for season 2s of those shows, Marriage and Apothecary, there weren't a lot of things. There was like 3 shows that I watched. So I'll get to those first. What I want to do after that is go into what I was trying to binge watch to kill time in between the weeklies, because I like to watch the weekly shows as they are for something like this, but I like to binge watch shows, that are complete or have been close, full to completion, or, getting close to completion, like 10 or 11 episodes in with an episode to go. Something of that nature, so that I have a lot to watch. But the show that I did like, and this probably won't come a shock to anybody when they hear it, will be Zenshu. And Zenshu is a bait and switch kind of show that ended up still good either direction they went with. The direction they were gonna go with when they advertised it was this animator girl who, keeps the hair over her face, and she's totally beautiful, because of course she fucking is, but, she, for whatever reason, is unkempt and, stays at the office and pisses off her coworkers, and she's a super, popular animator, and she's pressured into finishing a movie adaptation, I think, and she's not really getting anything done, so she falls ill and dies, only to get transported into something known as The Tale of Perishing, which was one of her favorite shows, or favorite novels, or something of that nature. It reminded me of Why Ray Leona is Now at the Duke's Mansion. That sort of setups, because she knows the ins and outs. Natsuko knows the ins and outs of this story and who the characters are and what's going to happen to them. And essentially, this band of 3 characters, this, sword and board dude, this unicorn kid, and an elven archer-ish lady, are besieged by these, like, Starship Trooper-looking bug things. And Natsuko comes in out of nowhere, and nobody's believing her because she's just some random girl, and she's picked on and ostracized for a few minutes, and she's like, well, nobody's going to pay attention to me. What the fuck do I do? She's got this, like, Mao Mao vibe to her, and that's really what's holding the show together, because you've seen stuff like this before. You've seen the character get isekai'd. You've seen a character like this probably be an isekai. You've seen Another World a million fucking times. So what does this do? Well, like I said, I think Natsuko has this air about her in that, like, dismissive, without being an asshole. This funny, dismissive, antisocial bitch, just like Mao Mao. But, they play it for fun, but they don't play it as funny as, say, Apothecary does. But I'm trying to give a sense of, like, what that character's going for without, honestly being 100% accurate. She's her own character still, but that's the closest approximation. Considering that I like Mao Mao a shit ton, it's an easy fit. So I'm liking that idea, and she goes into this other world, and she doesn't know what she's doing, and one of the characters wants to sacrifice themselves to to destroy all the bugs that are going to invade this town. So her superpower is that she can kind of reanimate things and create things out of her pen. And so you just create this giant fucking protector guardian thing, and it shoots laser beams and shit, and it's a fucking amazing visual. They saved all their good looking shit for the end of the show. Just this crazy stream of rainbow lights and shit, and it was great. And Zenshu is definitely on the I'm probably going to keep up with this and I'm probably going to like it edge. So if you haven't seen Zenshu, I would highly recommend it. What I won't recommend, however, are two other shows that debuted dub form this week. One being possibly the greatest alchemist to ever live, or of all time, or whatever the fuck. All I know is it was the most boring ass isekai to ever isekai, and I dumped it in 5 minutes. It's one of those shows where they say exactly what they say, with no emotion, no feeling, no intrigue. It's like, you're an adventurer. I need you to go to this world with these new skills and to do the Bleh. I dumped it. The other one was Magic Maker. A little bit better, and, I was starting to... I didn't like it at first, and I was starting to okay with it. That these kids that were from this noble family or whatever, and... they were brother and sister, and the sister's kind of that dopey, Chie Satonaka, I hit things really hard, so that's an interesting take, because that's usually the opposite. And then the bookish, meek boy character, I was okay with it as it was going on, but there was this undercurrent of weirdness that it wasn't very good, and it was already teetering on the edge of, I don't know if I like you. And you're not that great, but I'll work with you because you're trying to do stuff with magic and whatever. And then it had this undercurrent of incest, and I'll explain why. Not that I need to explain why I'm against it, but the sister character had this just verbal tick every minute or every couple of minutes where she would say, I'm your sister and I'm going to protect you, or I'm your sister, we can be together forever, or shit like that. And I don't think this was that type of show that was gonna go that route, and I don't think they wanted to, and I don't think they're ever going to. But then the last scene is what I really dumped it, because they said this like verbatim. It was like, we're going to go off and marry other people, but I don't want to go. I don't want to be away from you, brother. And it's really stupid, and I don't need this. And then the brother reciprocates, sort of. It's like, well, I won't get married if it means I have to leave you. And I'm like, God, you're doing this, aren't you? And I'm just like, no. You're already kind of junk. I have the stomach for like one kind of iffy, I'm on the fence show per season, right? And this is not going to be it. If you're going to do this crap all fucking show and tease something, even if it's harmless, I'm not going to do it. The only time I've ever dealt with an incest thing and it reasonably work okay was Tales of Berseria. But as I've said, Tales of Berseria was a very, very unique case of let's just throw every stupid, angsty thing at the wall and see what sticks. And it was from characters that were kind of like NPCs. They weren't there all the time, right? So it wasn't like the focal point of the show. They weren't spending all of their dialogue, every scene wondering about this. So I'm like, Magic Maker, in the fucking bin you go. But yeah, so Zenshu is good. The other two, not so much. So that answers that question. So there's not a whole lot there early on, I don't think. But my friend and I are going to watch Apothecary Diaries and Happy Marriage because they debuted this week. So I should have an update for you after that. So I'm going to fill time with right now is balance that out with stuff that I'm probably going to binge watch. And I was able to find at least two shows, one that I really liked, one that, again, I kind of dropped. So Makene, Too Many Losing Heroines. I like this so much, I'm going to review it in detail a couple months from now. I'm a sucker for shows that do the harem stuff right. And, like love stories, because there are so many shows like this that don't. But when they do, like when the quintessential quintuplets or the Tenchi Muyos, or I suppose even Love Hina, so that's a basic ass case, but Love Hina was still good for what it was, right? But there are so many other shows that do it so wrong, and they focus so heavily on the harem aspect. Makine was one that really did well, and I think it came down to balancing out the three main female leads and why they were the losing heroines. Balancing that out with the main dude who is a bit dopey but still has a bit to work with as he kind of like shit talks them enough, but in a nice way. But it's not vehement. He's like, I don't really like you. It's dumb. No, he likes them, but he is also the understanding of like, I'm not really trying to date these people, but I'm friends with them and I want to be friends, and the show's good enough to balance out, okay, we've got a couple episodes with this one, we got a couple episodes with that one, and we got a couple episodes with that one, and then we'll switch it around and we'll keep them together, because you got that 4 main characters, and then you got some others. I really do kind of wish there was more males in the show to balance things out. Like, there's only like 1 or 2, but I do think that they do rely heavily on the losing heroine bit, and I get the feeling that they're going to add more if they get another season, because I don't know how much you can stretch this concept out without it becoming just very bleh after a while. But for 1 season, like, it flies by super freaking fast. It's in that Toradora kind of vibe where they just do stupid shit, and they do stupid shit. Let's just have fun, but they do it with intrigue, and the dialogue is punchy, and it just works, So Makine was great. One I was kind of hopeful for it didn't happen was Uncle from Another World. The main issue I have with this is it was a pile of diminishing returns after a while. The concept is great. This dude reflecting on his past life as a dude from another world and making everybody feel weird and having to reintegrate into society. But what it really ended up being was these 3 people sitting at a table watching this dude watching a videotape. And it was just like, why am I spending 2 episodes watching this guy create his own harem with people that are stalkerish, sort of interesting, sort of not interesting? And then the dude would keep throwing in Sega references and Eva references, and I think for people like that, I get the references, but I think they were way too direct. It was almost like, hey, I'm a Sega guy. Do you like Sonic? I like Altered Beast. It's lovely. Let's talk about how Golden Axe got me into doing a thing for the goblins, and oh no, it didn't work like the video game. I'm like, it's a nothing comedy trying to be stupid and trying to be, I think if I was a little younger or if I was in the right mood, I think that would get me. But it was, I don't really feel anything for this main character, or I did, and I think his shtick got old, and I don't think I would have suffered another half season of this. I was just fed up after a while, and I started skipping parts of the episodes to see if there was anything I did like, and I'm like, where are the other girls? Why aren't they coming on to him by going to the other world and joining the cast? I'm like, no, he keeps doing flashbacks to this thing could have happened, but I'm not really that good at life lessons, and I didn't really pick up on that they liked me. It just kind of fell flat after a while, and it wasn't the worst. And I think that's what's more frustrating, is that I was liking that first couple of episodes, and then they got into that groove of like, I don't think I like you all that much. So people might find it more interesting than I did personally, but no. But hey, can't win them all. Tried stuff like Delicious and Dungeon, and I made it like 5 minutes, and I gave up on that one too. Really, like, the shows I'm interested in as far as binge watching are Pluto, and when it debuts next week, Castlevania Nocturne Season 2. So alongside all of the stuff that I'm doing for the weekly updates, I want to have stuff that I'm watching on the side every single day that I'm binge watching. So hopefully, stuff like Pluto, and obviously Castlevania, I know I'm going to like that. work to my favor, while other shows for the actual season start debuting, their dubbed versions as the weeks go by and things work for my favor. But that's a bit of a rundown of things. Zenshu was great. Obviously, try to skip Magic Maker and Apothecary. Watch that one. I meant Alchemist. God, no. Sweep possibly the greatest Alchemist under the rug unless you really want something basic ass as basic. Apothecary. Fuck yes. Watch Apothecary over and over and over and over, or Mau Mau will beat you with a stick. Anyway, that's enough for this episode. And this was actually the second time I recorded it because I had a thumbnail that had 1:11:24 on it, so I made this one a little shorter, hopefully. But anyway, as far as what's coming up later, I've got the episode of how I got into JRPGs and anime up, and I just have to upload it next week. Ys 8, the art and exploration of progression. That should be a fun thing to discuss. Golden Boy, Persona 5 Strikers, and like I said earlier, Makene, Too Many Losing Heroines. I'll talk about that more in detail. But for now, I'll call it a day, and I'll see you next time. Citizen Strife, signing off.